Okay. All warmed up and introduced, so you're no more strangers to each other now, right? And I'd also like to say a big welcome to the people in Zoom. Hi, everyone in Zoom. Right. So, my name is Veronica, and I have to me, health is very important. All this time, looking after myself has always been my priority. It's easier for me because I only have myself to look after. But then I later have my own mom, and then now I have my brother to look after. So even more so, I see health being very important. I think lately a lot of feeds about health has been cropping up in my Facebook and Google. The recent one is where doctor's clinic bidded for a clinic space and they were paying $52,000 in rent. I sat down and did some sums, $52,000. The clinic has to see at least 50 people a day. And that is just to cover the rent. It doesn't cover the utilities. It doesn't cover the staff that you have to hire. So what does it mean? It just means that all these costs will later on be transferred to the patients, right? So healthcare can only rise. And also with our lack of manpower, So how do we tackle this problem? Tonight's speaker is going to show you exactly how to do this. Okay. He is my good friend, my mentor, an engineer by trade, and he is also an adventurer at heart. So he is also very aware of, you want to go mountain climbing, you have to be healthy, right? So I would like to all of you to put your hands together and welcome our Platinum Director, Ho Yi Kit. Sorry.
All right, good evening. For those friends who are meeting me for the first time, let me first introduce myself. My name is Kid, literally spelled K-I-D, so I'm always the youngest one around. Okay. Now, for those of you who actually know me, knows that I love stories. And that's really, I always tell people that, there's one story, after so many years of doing. Let me just make sure I switch it back on. There's one story that I feel that every one of us should know, and this story has a lot of meaning to me. Now you see that bridge behind me, right? And the picture, beautiful bridge. Okay, in a little country in South America called Honduras. Now that country is famous for its typhoons and big storms, right? So what the government decided that this was a very important river. Okay, it was called the Choluteca River. Hence they say, okay, we're going to build this bridge right across the river, connecting both sides of the country. And because they know that the country is beset with storms, they decided to get a very well-known Japanese company to build this bridge. Yes, of course, so this was really spent millions on the state-of-the-art bridge. Now, sure enough, in year 2008, okay, the bridge was actually completed in year 2008, as you see now, no, 1998, sorry, not 2008, 1998, right? That year, a couple of months later, okay, there was a huge typhoon called Mitch. Now, it was huge because it was like kind of the mother of all hurricanes, swept through the country for a whole solid week. Now, what happened is all the bridges actually that was crossing this bridge in other places was all swept away, except for this bridge. This bridge stood. Wow, a testament to really the Japanese technology that went into its design, right? However, nature has its own thoughts. Guess what? The typhoon, although did no damage to the bridge, swept away the roads on both sides of the bridge. And better still, started to carve its way around the bridge, literally burrow its way. And suddenly that bridge, which was supposed to be the state-of-the-art technology became really a bridge that serves no purpose. Yeah, it actually became known as the bridge to nowhere. Yeah, indeed today, if you go there, it's still standing there. Now, what's the story really all about? That you realize that when actually change hits us, it's totally unpredictable, right? It actually, if we don't adapt to change, very easily it leaves us be obsolete. Yeah, without us realizing it. And of course, many of us know that one of the biggest change that just happened was, what is this? COVID, right? Yeah, that 3 years, of, I think, none of us has ever experienced something like that before, right? Lockdown in the house, no traveling among countries and so forth. And we are just coming out from it, right? This is 2025, 2 years later. Things are kind of starting to return back to normal, right? But I think that COVID actually taught many people a big lesson, right? Many businesses failed, many people were out of jobs and so forth. And just when we thought that we were all out of it, guess what? Hey, everyone recognize that? I call it the president of all changes, year 2025. They've even coined a name for it, Trumponomics. Yes. No, they actually term him the agent of chaos and confusion. Now, for those who remember, just back in early April, what did he do? Ta-da! His famous board. He slapped a tariff across hundreds and hundreds of countries, including Singapore itself. So yes, Singapore itself was not spared. It was so bad that even, if you kind of look at that, some of the countries that he slapped the tariff on was like really, really big. It was so bad that even the penguins were not spared. Poor penguins who live on this uninhabited island were slapped with tariffs. I don't know what they were going to pay with, fish or whatever it is. But that 2 days itself, do you realize what? Almost 93 trillion of the whole market. Okay, the whole market was panicking and so forth. And of course, things seem to have gotten better. The tariffs are back and forth. They negotiated and so on. And if you think things are going to get better, guess what? Right? If those that have been keeping up with the news, he just stopped all the foreign visa of students going into America. Right? He slapped tariffs on foreign films. I'm not too sure what he's going to do. Even I think people who were very close to him, right? Elon Musk and even the CEO of Steve Jobs suddenly find that, hey, being buddy with him, you thought that I supported him during the presidency, he can just turn around. And welcome to the world of chaos. And, we're probably going to see another 3 or 4 years of it. So changes are going to be with us. And if you don't adapt to changes, it can easily leave us obsolete. Now, I myself, my name is Kit. I have my own Choloteka moment. And I hope by sharing tonight will actually resonate with you and learn the lessons that I learned from. So there I was, happily working in corporate for 28 years, counting now, right? 28 years. And I would say that, all of us have about the same mothers and same fathers. And what are they, right? What did my mom teach us to do? Get a good education, right? How many moms actually do that, right? Get a good education, right? Study hard, get good grades. Then what happened? Get a good job, find a good job. Okay, better still, say work with the government. The government is like an iron rice bowl. Okay, so there I was, listening to my mother, got my grades, got a good job in the corporate and climbed the corporate ladder. How many of that sounds familiar to you all? Right? Okay. Now, guess what? It was 2007 when I had that moment. Now, 2007, remember what happened was the financial crisis. Now, it wasn't because my company was not doing well. My company was actually doing very, very well. We were like, still having, I still remember I had a conversation with my overseas colleague. Wow, despite the crisis, we are all still doing well. Now, guess what? The next day when I came into work, suddenly I had no overseas colleagues anymore. We were taken over, right, by a big company. And the first thing they did was literally overnight, they literally just retrenched everybody. So, imagine the shock, right? You know, I was still talking to somebody the next day, and the next day when you call, there's nobody picking up the call, and when you find out later why, they said, oh, we are all out of a job. You know, the HR is serving us the pink slip and whatever it is, you know, everyone in Singapore was shocked. Yes, so I had my own shock moment too. Okay. And I guess that shock, I was lucky. I was lucky in the sense that you know, a lot of my colleagues were not as lucky. I managed to survive through that so-called retrenchment exercise. But it kind of woke me up and said that, wow, okay, actually working for corporate after all is not you know, it's not really an iron rice bowl. So that really set me thinking. I'm very thankful for that moment. Because of that, I started to say that, okay, I better have a backup plan. Okay, so what did I do? Started reading books, going to courses, seminars, and so forth. And guess what? I met a good friend called Robert. And you know, I went through Robert's book. And how many of you all know who is Robert Kiyosaki? Hands up, right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all right? And his most famous theory is what? The cash flow quadrant. Wow, that's when I realized that, oh, okay, I think Robert puts me in what we call the E quadrant. And what does the E quadrant do? I'm an employee, I work for somebody, I trade time for money, right? I give my 8 to 5, the company pays me, and that's what an employee do. And then Richard says, Robert says, okay, in order to buy yourself out of, you know, all this, what we call modern type slavery, you got to work your way up into what we call a B quadrant. If you see out there, the B quadrant is what we call the business quadrant, right? So I will step back and think, okay, great. You know, Robert say must start a business. And what does most people do when they want to start a business? You fall back on the things that you love the most, correct? You say that, wow, if I'm passionate about this thing, sure can do. I won't get bored doing it. This is where things become interesting. Like what Veronica just introduced to me, I was passionate in the outdoors. I love trekking. And I was fortunate to be given the opportunity to lead one of the oldest adventure club in Singapore, called the Singapore Adventurers Club, for more than 10 years, serve as a president. I said, hey, great. You know, when I was in this club, there seems to be a demand for outdoor activities. So why don't I start a little gig economy, right? A little gig job leading treks. Okay, I love trekking and so forth, right? And hence, I just started this little outfit called Love and Adventure. For some of you who have actually been on my Facebook would know that I have a group that's actually called Love and Adventure. The eventual vision was to help people find love through adventure, never reach that stage. Now, this is when I started discovering that, wow, I'm like what the Chinese say, a one-leg kick. Now, what does that mean? Wow, first I got to go proposition, I got to write proposals, I got to write, approach all the clubs, approach everybody to ask for business. Then, of course, I got to market myself, social media. And back then, social media didn't quite really exist yet. So it's very tedious emails and phone calls to clubs, to whoever that I think may need this type of service. Now, when I managed to secure a job, you say, then I realized that, hey, I got to lead the tracks myself because I was the attraction factor. I couldn't sub it out to anybody, and neither was the profitability good enough to be that. Now, at the end of it, worse still, I'm the accountant. I got to call, collect, and then they'll tell me, can you wait 60 days later and so forth. Well, I tell you, it was tough. Now I was like, hey, Robert didn't say business was that tough, right? That's where I discovered, Robert actually has another category in his cash flow quadrant called a small business owner. Right? S stands for small business owner, or some people call self-employed. Now, what are self-employed like? Yoga instructor. I teach yoga. I get money. I teach yoga. I get money. Like a lot of people like MCs. I get an MC job. I do my MC. I collect money. Oh, in the end, even though you thought that you are running your own business, a lot of time it's like the business owns you, right? Because you are just trading for time for money. And that really kind of like, okay, so I seem to be stuck in the wrong quadrant either. And I think the universe must have hurt me, right? This is when, I got back in contact with an old friend. For some of you who recognize the younger self of the person up there, he's none other than my good friend and mentor, Pearl Ambassador Alvin Yong, right? Now, what I knew ever a long time ago, back to the days when we were climbing mountains and so forth, right? And climb walls and things. Then one day I came across Alvin, posting about a social project in Thailand. Now, I was very intrigued. That, okay, this is really what I want to do. I say, wow, go around the world helping people. But I say, but where does this guy make all his money from? Like, can't be, he happily go a couple of months and do all these projects. So I was very curious. I decided to invite him out for a dinner. And I tell you, that was certainly my best investment to date. Okay, guaranteed. Okay. So over dinner, and we were sharing how he has a global business. I was like, you have a global business? And he was telling me about, the people that, the customer that he has and all the people that he's working with on his wellness business. Wow. What came to mind was I suddenly saw light at the end of a tunnel. And it wasn't a train coming towards me, okay? It was possibly, salvation. Okay. I said, Alvin, tell me more. And that was really how my AVITA journey started and how I actually got my foot on top of the longevity economy. And really now, I lead professionals, right, to actually climb summits, okay, of health and wellness and, climb new adventures of wellness with them. And my adventure has brought me to countries like Cambodia. I have customers as far as Peru, Australia, and so forth, right? Now, one of the best things is when Alvin got me into AVITA, one of the first things we start learning was to meet this guy called Team Sales. And Tim, very interesting guy, used to be an ex-army guy, taught me a lot about assessing business. Now, he said, Tim says, one of the important things when you want to assess a business or whether you decide you want to be in it is this thing called trends. Right? Trends are very important. Now, imagine today, if somebody will come to you and say, I can give you the lowest price, best quality, compact disc, you just go and sell. Do you think you'll be successful? No, okay. What about the best film? Okay, best film in the world, I give you the cheapest camera, cheapest film. Do you think you'll be successful? No. Why? Because they are past their trends, right? So trend is very important because if the trend is very short-lived, then your business too will be very short-lived. Then you're going to keep on looking for business after business after. So you want to look for a business where the trend is like, unstoppable. The trend is ever growing. And let me share with you some of these trends that, have been becoming more and more apparent over the last few years. Okay, now one of them is this graph down here. So what does this graph tells us? Well, great. Well, this is only a matter of 200 years though. Do you realize that that's about 200 years ago, you'll be lucky if you live to the age of 35. Nowadays, 35 is only like, what? You are still working in your prime of your time, right? Now, the average life expectancy has easily gone to what? 73, 74 years old. Now, no surprises. 200 years ago, medication wasn't that sophisticated, right? There's war, sanitation is bad, a lot of stuff are still pretty backward. So yes, indeed, mankind has moved and advanced. In fact, we have actually cracked the secret of how to live much older. We have learned how to add years to life, and that is really a big thanks to all the modern medication and all the advancements that we have, right? So great. We have learned how to live longer. And this trend extends all the way to even Southeast Asia. You realize that Singapore actually has the record for living the longest, 84 years old. Okay? And if you kind of look at the statistics, yes, what does that mean? That also means that the population of seniors who are getting older and older are getting more. Now, then very interesting trend is actually appearing, starting with Singapore. You realize that more and more people are, just delaying later and later to get married, citing high costs, financial costs, and so forth. And a lot of people are not even getting married. And for those who are getting married, are not even giving birth enough. In fact, the birth rate is so low that you realize that we cannot even replace ourselves in Singapore. For every 2 persons that get married, right, they only give birth to slightly less than 1 child to replace the 2 of them. Right? Okay, let's not talk about the people who are not married, right? And this is actually a trend that's not just happening in Singapore, but happening all over the world. In advanced countries like Japan and so forth, even Korea, they're actually facing this. In fact, one of the very troubling thing is, humans are not even reproducing fast enough to actually replace ourselves eventually, okay? But that's not a problem for us to worry about immediately, okay? So this is a trend. People are living longer, right? However, are people getting healthier? No. I think many of us will realize that, this is a statistics that goes back to all the way to 2019, but the more recent statistics in 2025 shows that on average, every Singaporean, even if you live all the way to 84 years old, the last 10 years of your life is really spent in poor health. And in fact, very interesting, it says that on average, right, the person who are in poor health don't just have one type of illness, typically has about on average, three types of chronic illness. And I'm sure some of you would agree because, you see your loved ones, those who have like high blood pressure, diabetes, taking a whole cocktail of medicine. Right? This is a very true statistic, right? Even though we live longer, we are not healthier. Okay? Now I'm going to teach you a bit of Chinese. Okay. Now, 生老病死, right? What does it mean? Okay. This is what it means. First we are born. Right, then of course as we age, then typically, towards the final part of our life, due to conditions, we get sick, and of course we all die. Okay, of course, between being born and between when we die is something we call lifespan. Okay, that's the length of our life, right? Now, normally like in Singapore, the life you are spent relatively healthy is what we call the health span, right? So roughly about 0 to about 74 years old. Then the last 10 years, like you said, where you have a lot of illness and so forth, that's what we call the sick span. Right? Now, this really reminds me of my late mother-in-law, right? When she got stroke, and then we brought her home to take care of her and stuff like that. It got to a point where she encountered multiple strokes and she was bedridden. And we didn't have a choice but to put her in the nursing home. Now, in the nursing home where she actually spent the last 5 to 6 years of her life, life was like, every day open the eyes, look at the fan on top blowing. You can't even eat solid food. It was just tube feeding. I cannot imagine myself living that. And that is sick span. Of course, if it's not as serious as that, then not a problem, right? But if it's very serious, like you hit, diseases like terminal diseases like cancer, then it can be a terrible last few years. Okay, so of course all of us would like to do that, right? If we could extend our health span all the way till we pass, not too bad, right? We wanted to die, that's it. Okay, all of us will die eventually, but to live healthily until all the way, that is the wish of everyone. Okay, so these are some of the very real things that is happening in the world. Okay, which then leads us to kind of understand what is happening in the world right now. What are the current growing trends? Because only in understanding these trends, then we can understand what to do with it. Okay, now what these trends, rising life expectancy, people are living longer and longer. So what does that lead to? Yeah, people are being more active. Right now, you realize that, even in Singapore, people in the 60s, 70s, or even some of them in the 80s are still active, either working, they want to be productive because they have a good life. And because of that, right, a lot of them are seeking what? Health, seeking energy, seeking the vitality to be able to do what they love, to be productive, right? And many of them realize that, hey, I can't depend on my children to support me because we are not even giving enough birth to replace me. I better be financially independent, right? This is something that, everybody is seeking financial independence. And guess what? We love to learn, right? That's why all the skills future courses are so popular, right? All the elderly goes for all sorts of courses, including learning phones and so forth. So this is some of the things that's going to happen when life gets extended. Right, and of course now many of them, towards the second half of the year are seeking career flexibility, right? I don't want to be bounded to a company anymore. I want to work and earn money, but I want some flexibility in my life, and of course probably a career that's meaningful. Now, with aging population, what does that also comes about? There's a big demand in healthcare, things like caregiving, right? And there is a big consumer spending pattern now on things like what? Preventive wellness, yeah, because many of them are seeking good health. in things like travel. Wow, people love traveling, right? I see, especially Singaporeans, they love traveling. They love health, they love beauty. They love to get good quality of life, right? With the more affluent, right? People love a flexible work model. Now, what does that mean? So they say, I've got enough of doing corporate work for so many years, right? Yeah, I'll do some part-time work that brings me enough income to keep me actively engaged. They're looking at entrepreneurship. Yeah, I've heard so much about Robert Kiyosaki say, maybe I should, take a step at, doing my own little business. They want a career with purpose, something that brings meaning to life and flexi work with time freedom so they can do what they want to do, right? These are some of the things. And of course, they don't want to give up on their lifestyle. Well, it must bring a good income for us to sustain our lifestyle. Now, other things which is interesting because you realize that a lot of these baby boomers, which are now hitting their 60s, 70s, 80s, right? And some of the older Gen X, realize they own 80% of the global wealth. Yes, they all actually have money in their pocket, okay, wondering what to do with it. But of course, they're trying to bring them to a good life throughout. And they're willing to spend on things that actually improve their life. They're very discerning, but they're willing to spend on things that will improve their lives, right? And of course, tech products that going to make life easier, right? A remote control that means that you don't have to walk to the TV and switch it on, things like that. Wearables, all the popular Fitbit watches and so forth. And anti-aging solutions. People are more savvy right now. They're looking for anti-aging solutions that not only keep them looking young, beautiful, but also healthy. And of course, everybody's looking to maximize the health span because they know they are living longer. Now, it's also important because if you're healthy, you avoid high medical costs. Now, how many have heard that in Singapore, you can die, but you cannot get sick? Because you can get sick, you can wipe out all your wealth, okay? Then you don't have wealth to then carry over to live a good life, right? So preventive healthcare is becoming more and more apparent, especially like what Veronica says. Healthcare or sick care cost is definitely going to creep up. I mean, with $50,000 rental per month clinics, I don't see sick care getting cheaper, okay? And of course, fitness and good nutrition and supplements. So these are really some of the trends that are becoming very apparent and, even more pronounced over the last 5 to 6 years, okay? Right. Now that we know wellness is an unstoppable trend because all these people are looking for wellness, let's take a guess at how big the wellness business is. Yes, you see a number there, $7.2 trillion. Doesn't mean too much, right? Now let's compare to something interesting. Now, not all the people will take supplements, but every one of us will have a handphone, correct? Some people have 2, have 3. Okay. Now take a guess, right? If the wellness business is $7.2 trillion, how big do you think the handphone business is? Come, Nelly, venture a guess. Bigger, smaller than 7 trillion? Do you think the handphone business is big? Yeah. So, just do you think it's going to be bigger than 7 trillion or less than 7 trillion? Less than. Oh, okay, good. Anybody venture a guess? Maybe the young ones. Okay, the young ones are more savvy with the phone. You will own 2 or 3 phones. How big do you think? Just throw me a number. How big do you think the handphone business is? Which? 5 trillion? Billion. Okay. Interesting. You actually think that the handphone business, despite everyone of us having a handphone, is actually smaller. Yeah, you're not too far off. Actually, this is a statistic, right? Wow. You realize that despite everybody using a handphone and having a handphone, the handphone business is so much smaller than a wellness business. So indeed, the wellness industry is really growth trend, I should say that, okay? Now, this becomes interesting, right? Always remember, my mentor always tell me, when you find that the tide is rising, don't fight it, okay? Find a way, get a boat right on the tide and go to higher places. Now, let's now go to the longevity economy. Now, what is the longevity economy? It's really this, opportunities that are actually arising through what we call the aging generations that we are seeing, people living longer. In fact, there was a recent newspaper article from the Straits Times that said that the longevity economy is worth about $10 trillion. Now, that's a big, big number, okay? Bigger than even the 7.2 that you are talking about, right? Now, always remember, every problem Okay, every problem, if you look at it as a problem, it will be a problem, but every problem also presents with it an opportunity. And if you have a very good and efficient solution to solve a problem of a growing trend, hey, isn't that a very good business? So today, this is what I'm going to be sharing with you, okay? Two solutions, okay, that's going to help you tap on the longevity economy. Now, the first one, let me first introduce you to CELERGEN from Switzerland. Okay, let's sit back and watch the movie first, then I'll speak more. All right, thank you. Now, aging, all of us are going to age. Now, just remember that, slowing down aging, right, doesn't come from the big level. It really starts at what we call a cell level. Now, our cells will definitely age, right? You realize that when you're a baby, when you get a cut, you heal very fast. But, as you age, you're in the 60s, 70s, 80s, your grandma type of stuff, when they get a cut, it takes a long time to heal. And that's the result of actually the cells, due to lifestyle, due to whatever it is, getting weaker and weaker. And where does CELERGEN come in? With CELERGEN, the ability of doing this is very important, okay? First, it helps actually protects the cells from what we call free radicals, okay? It actually has that ability to protect, and many of us know that, what is toxic to cells are basically what is something called free radicals. So just know that, okay, CELERGEN is a very strong antioxidant. It's able to help protect the cells against these things called free radicals. Now, after it's protect against the free radicals, what CELERGEN does is by providing very high quality nutrients. Okay, it's like a house, my house is wearing down, but now if you give me very good bricks or very good cement or material to build my bricks, I can throw away the old stuff and put in new stuff again, and guess what? I'm making my house stronger again. So very similar to that, by providing very high quality nutrients, I'm able to repair damaged cells. Now, more important, once you're able to repair damaged cells, you enable the cells now to become healthier, and you enable them to become more normalized. And guess what? Because they're healthier, the next cells that they are going to be replicating are becoming healthier and healthier. Okay, so this is how, in a simple thing, CELERGEN works. Now, if I'm looking for a good solution in the market as a business, there are a couple of things I'm very discerning because I'm from the engineering background. So I studied a lot into CELERGEN. Now, one of them, now you must be wondering, okay, now that I say so much, how well the CELERGEN works. So let me share with you this story. Okay, now there's these two ladies. These two ladies are very good friends. Okay, now some of you will know them if you have visited here often. Maybe I'll ask our new friends here. Now take a guess between Lady A and Lady B. How old do you think Lady A is, and how old do you think Lady B is? Okay, Maybe I'll pick on you, Nelly. How old do you think? Just throw a number. How old do you think Lady A is, and how old do you think Lady B is? Don't worry, they are not around, so you won't. So Lady A is 60. Okay, Lady B in the 50s. Oh, good. She'll be very happy to hear that. Okay, let me show you. Okay, not too far, but she's slightly younger than your guess. She's about 50, 57. Okay. Guess how old Lady B is? Lady B is 75 years old. Yeah. Okay. So, Lady B is actually Auntie Yo. For those who will be here, if you are going to the award dinner, keep an eye out for her. Lady Yo. So what happened was one day, Auntie Yo met her good friend Chun Gyok. Okay, the lady on Lady A is Chun Gyok on the street. Both of them almost couldn't recognize each other. Right? One of them must be thinking, "Wow, how come you look like that?" The other will say, "Ha, wow, how you look like that?" Right? So of course, Chun Gyok was very curious and wanted to find out the secret from Mrs. Yo. And this photo was taken, if you actually can see the familiar scene, it's just right outside our office. They took a photo there. And Chun Gyok actually asked Auntie Yo about her secret. And of course, Auntie Yo shared about CELERGEN for her. And then Chun Gyok got started on CELERGEN. And guess what? Less than 4 months later, look at the big drastic difference in Chun Gyok. Right? So this is, and in fact, this was the picture that that actually amazes a lot of people, including myself initially. Right? Now you must be wondering, okay, so Mrs. Yo was on CELERGEN since the day CELERGEN was launched. Now that was way back in 2013. Now what happened to Auntie Yo over the years? Let's try and take a look. Okay, this is Auntie Yo in 2022. You realize actually she looked just about the same. In fact, some will actually say she seems to be growing younger and younger. This is 2023 and this is 2024. Okay. Now, some of you who have been long enough on CELERGEN will realize that your age seems to have been frozen in time. Okay, that's what's happened now. Of course, and she's 85 right now, and this year she's 86. Watch out for her during the award dinner, right? And then take a photo with her. Okay, yeah. Okay. Now, of course, like many good parents, like, when we find a good thing, we would help our parents. So this is actually Chun Gyok's mom. When Chun Gyok took CELERGEN and found that, wow, we have very good effect, she decided to give the mom who was 88 years old back then. Okay, so this is Chun Gyok's mom. And look at her just 2 months later after taking CELERGEN. Don't she look more younger and vibrant? You can see the skin starts to glow. And just after 2 more years, wow, you almost couldn't recognize the two ladies from 2 years apart. Same pair of spectacles, but the whole vitality, everything is totally different. And in fact, this was the picture that convinced me to give my mom CELERGEN. And this was me with my mom at age 88. And I'm always very thankful that I had the opportunity to, provide her CELERGEN for 7 years. No, I was in the business for about 7 years. For the 7 years of my life, I'm fortunate to be able to give her what I would say the gift of good health. Now, what does that entail? That is energy. She has the energy to do the things she loves. She has the vitality, and more important, she has the mobility. She was still able to, drive herself around, and so forth. In fact, a lot of friends were very jealous of her and keep on asking her what was the secret. Okay. Yeah, she did share with them. Okay. So, and I'm very thankful. I mean, I think, because of CELERGEN, this is about 2 years ago. I had the opportunity to travel with her to Spain, together with the AVITA family, and then I think many of you know here. Okay. So I would say that, my mom was very fortunate that I would think that her health span, is relatively good until, her final days. Maybe the last 6 months or so, or 7 months, when she was visibly weakening, and then of course she just passed on earlier this year. But I'm always thankful that, this is one gift that I was able to give. And I always tell that, good health is something that I think, that's the best gift that all the children can give to their parents. Okay? Now, why is CELERGEN so effective? Okay, I'll not bore you with the details. You see the word there called synergistically blended, right? Now, CELERGEN doesn't contain a lot of ingredients. The key 3 ingredients that's actually highlighted in red is actually extracted from fish milk that actually comes from wild-caught marine life. Okay, now, why is this synergistic thing so important? Now, it's just like many of us who are Okay. Now, you know, like a chef, you know, we can all start with the same ingredient, but do you realize that, you know, why does a high-class Michelin chef able to fry the fried rice so nice? Very maybe fried is passable, right? Now, it's all about knowing what the right way to blend all these ingredients together to make it effective. And the Swiss are known, okay, to be one of the best place to make high-class supplement. Okay, and that is really one of the true testament of why, you know, when I heard that it's Switzerland made, you know, no qualms about giving it to my mom or even, you know, my wife and my son too, right? Now, so it's the synergistically. Now, more important, it's also co-extracted. Now, all these bioproteins, which is food for the cells, are very sensitive to heat. So you cannot process them using heat, which many supplements do. If you look at your supplements that are in powder form, then, you know, typically they are processed using the heat process. Whereas CELERGEN is processed using the Swiss proprietary process, very low temperature, in order to retain the efficacy of these nutrients. In fact, I said be careful because, you know, the inside CELERGEN liquid, they actually live fish DNA. Okay, that's how potent they are. Okay, so that's why CELERGEN is so effective. Now, more important, you know, it's also fully digestible. So CELERGEN is not meant to be digested by the stomach. Okay, it's meant to be protected against the stomach acid, gets straight into the small intestine, and in the small intestine, it passes through very easily through the lining, right into the bloodstream, and it feeds into the cells immediately. And that's why it's so potent. Right? So like for my mom who's very old, I know her digestion system is not good. You know, things like CELERGEN will be very useful because she doesn't really need to digest it. It goes into her body, feeds the nutrients. So when my sister was telling me that mom is, you know, has no appetite, I said, good, just give her 2 CELERGEN, you know, that would be good enough to provide her, you know, enough nutrients, okay? So that's why CELERGEN is so effective. Now, more important, if I'm dealing with a product that has effect on cells, I want to be assured that it's safe. And CELERGEN is one of those products that has more than 40 worldwide accreditations. And more important, I'm going to point to you a few accreditations. One of them is the ability to be manufactured in Switzerland and sold in Switzerland. Not all supplements can be made in Switzerland. Yes, in Swiss, they are very picky over what type of supplements they can even manufacture. Okay, it's not that have money, they will manufacture. Okay. Now, second thing, not all supplements, even if they are made in Switzerland, can be sold in Switzerland. Okay, in fact, CELERGEN is actually used by some of the anti-aging clinics in Switzerland to actually complement their stem cell therapy treatment. Okay, now important too is this thing called a BSCG certification. A BSCG certification means the product is safe. It doesn't have drugs, steroids, hormones, because Olympic athletes are very picky about taking supplements that, you know, or they get detected for, you know, doping and so forth. Now, why is this important? Not because we are Olympic athletes. Because, you know, what we want to know that when we take something, especially you have things like cancer or hormonal disorders, you want to be sure that whatever that you are taking does not make the condition worse. So a BSCG cert is what gives me the reassurance. That's why I recommend it to help many of my patients who are battling things like cancer and so forth. And we are very proud that actually CELERGEN has this what we call a little blue hat logo. You know, in order to get the blue hat logo means that CELERGEN is authorized to be sold in China. And it's not easy to get that. We are one of the few foreign supplements to be able to achieve that. They tested many and many hundreds of boxes in order to determine its efficacy. And it's one of the few supplements that you realize actually has clinical test records backing up its efficacy. And that's why, you know, for me, you know, this is the highest assurance for me that, you know, when I recommending a solution to my customers, I don't have any doubts at all about its safety, its efficacy, and its quality. Okay. Now, CELERGEN don't just benefit the okay, it actually benefits everybody of all ages. And yes, we do have a Nelly here, and then Nelly is also on the screen down there. This is Nelly actually with her 2 sons who were doctors before she was on CELERGEN. And this photo was very cute. She thought she was looking her best because she was on holiday, she was relaxed and so forth. But, you know, look at her just after a few years on CELERGEN. And both her sons are doctors now. Okay, during the COVID period, she actually provide CELERGEN to the son to make sure they're also protected against, COVID and so forth. Now, what other benefits does CELERGEN bring aside from beautifying her? This. You realize these are some of the things that people look for as they age, right? Slows down your aging, improve your beauty, boost the mood, improve your sleep. A lot of people have sleeping issues. Okay, when they get older, arthritis, a big issue. Okay, strengthen the immune system, especially now with COVID still on the rise. And of course, accelerating recovery, whether it's surgery, whether you get a cut and so forth. These are some of the things that all the aging population, all the people who crave good health is looking for. Now, this is interesting because I just came back from Malaysia, and this was a case with one of the lady, right? Her mom has arthritis on her hands. And remember, arthritis is one of the chronic illness that all the aging populations are battling. And this lady, Yanni's mother, actually, when she heard about CELERGEN, decided to give CELERGEN to the mom. And within just a couple of months, the mom was able to flex her fingers again, cook again, went back to what she loved. And indeed, this was a big blessing for her. Okay. Now, another story, this came from all the way from Cambodia. Though when I was back there 2 years ago, this guy, Andrew, shared with me, he has this condition called bamboo spine. For some of you who are aware that, sometimes you see people hunch over as they age and they so don't seem to be straightened down. It's actually an autoimmune condition where the spine is being calcified or is being hardened up. And, as it goes longer and longer, you'll find that it's stuck. And that was what happened to Andrew. And then, of course, Andrew tried a lot of things, Singapore, Malaysia, different style of medication, even in Cambodia. And then a good friend of his, Albert, recommended, say, why don't you give CELERGEN a try? And lo and behold, he tried, and within 2 or 3 months, he was able to feel the difference. When I met him, he was walking around and said, "Kid, if you have seen me 1 year ago, you wouldn't have recognized me because, when I get up from the table, everybody outside going to wait for me for 5 minutes before I could even slowly hobble out to get to outside to meet them." So these days, he's back to his active lifestyle. He's swimming, he's even playing football again. And, last time when I think earlier in Cambodia this year, he was really enjoying his quality of health, thanks to CELERGEN. Now, I cannot not talk about cancer because especially we are talking about cell therapy. And cell therapy, many people knows that affects cells, right? So now there's a very interesting study that was actually conducted by the company. Now, which is very reassuring to all of us who's doing business, means the company is very responsible to ensure that whatever we do is safe, we understand why it's efficient. So when we tested CELERGEN against cancer cells, these are just some of the findings that was arise from the studies. Just to simplify it, now with very aggressive cancer cells in the presence of CELERGEN, they found that it was able to actually slow down the growth of very aggressive cancer cells. Now, which is good news, because for those of you who are undergoing treatment, you want to give sufficient time for the treatment to deal with the cancer cells. Now, more important, it's also able to reduce certain oncogenic activities. And what it means that it's a good supplement to use for prevention of certain cancers which are actually triggered by these markers. So these are just some of the cancers. I'm sure some of you will recognize, some of these cancers which are very common, many of the loved ones that we had. Now, I just came back from Malaysia, and this was a very interesting story. This guy is called Najib. Right? Now, Najib was a very active sportsman. And lo and behold, one day, he stopped sweating. Now, we all may think that it's not a big problem, right? You just stop sweating, but you realize that sweating is a way that your body uses to cool your body down. So when he stopped sweating, he really panicked, right? I don't blame him, right? And he was overheating. So the sister recommended that he went to get a checkup. And guess what? The checkup said that, wow, your cancer markers are very high. In fact, they are off the normal range. And then Najib checked himself into hospital for a thorough medical checkup. Right? Lo and behold, after 2 days of checkup, they told him, wow, congratulations. We didn't find any cancer. You are healthy. But he said, I can't be healthy because I'm not sweating. They couldn't find out what was wrong. The cancer markers were high. They just tell him he's healthy, he can go home. He suffered with that condition for almost 4 to 5 years. Right? Couldn't exercise. He said, if I go, because he's a civil engineer, he goes to the site, he gets overheated, he got to go to an aircon room to cool himself down. One day, a friend recommended him to try CELERGEN. Well, he was skeptical. Well, of course, he's tried so many things until they didn't work. But less than 2 weeks after he started on CELERGEN, right? One day he felt a trickle of sweat floating down. Wow, he was like amazed. And you know what he do? He lays up his sports shoes, go and run the staircase of his condo. Wow, and found himself sweating. You know, sometimes you don't know what you miss until you have lost it. And he lost the ability to sweat. He discovered the ability to sweat. It was just, so gratifying, And of course, he went for his check later, his cancer markers also came down. And that was really a gratifying part, right? So check with the friends who's invited you, if you have loved ones who are actually looking for a solution, maybe to complement their cancer and treatment and so forth, CELERGEN would be one of them, right? Now, doctors too love CELERGEN, right? So these are just some of the doctors who actually fall in love with CELERGEN. In fact, they are also CELERGEN takers. I'm going to share a story about my friend, Dr. Lucero. He was one of the most famous aesthetic surgeons in Philippines. Right? Now, if you have money and you have, power in Manila, you want to go for something to do with aesthetic, this is the go-to person. In fact, it's known as the godfather of plastic surgery there, right? Now, what Dr. Lucero discovered was by experimenting first on himself, CELERGEN gave him energy and vitality. Wow, great. So he was still able to do his surgery all the way till his old age. Now, more important, he realized that when he started giving it to his patients was healing better and healing faster. He always said that my biggest concern is because my patients are all very old. So it's always complication after surgery. So he discovered that after they take CELERGEN, they were healing better from the scars. They were getting, and more important, it was actually restoring the energy and vitality to them. So he always has this term, under my hand, if you are 60, I can make you look like 40 again. But I can never make you feel like 40 again. This is my last secret to you, CELERGEN. And many of his patients are now happily consuming CELERGEN, really getting that quality of life. Right? Now, second thing I'm going to tell you now, if today CELERGEN is being sold in a pharmacy or just by anti-aging doctors, even if we love CELERGEN a lot, guess what? We will just be consumers. I will have to go there, buy, take. Okay, if it's good for me, I will continue buying. I have to go somewhere to find more or make more money in order to buy my supply of CELERGEN. Now, this is where it's important because having a good solution is one thing, right? Having the ability to take this solution and help you make your wealth is important. This is why I'm going to introduce you to what we call the AVITA business platform. Now, who is AVITA? We are really a preventive wellness company, Singapore company, and this year we'll be celebrating our 17th anniversary. Right? We are very proud to have come a long way. And yes, we are a network marketing business, and I must tell you, after 7 years of it, I love network marketing. Right? It's one of the most amazing business model that was ever, I would say, founded. Okay. Now we are located in 10 countries across Asia. And thanks to this lady, we call her Miss Lee. If you come often to the office, you see her quite a bit. And if you're coming to a award dinner, you get to see her. Now, I'm very thankful. Miss Lee always has this thing to say, life is a gift, never take it for granted. I'm very grateful that, Miss Lee has made it available for ordinary people like myself and yourself to be able to get into the business of offering a very premium anti-aging solution. And in that process, help us to build our wealth and build our way towards time and financial freedom. Now, she has chosen to do it the traditional way, which, yes, in certain countries, in US and so forth, still done the traditional authorized distributor way. But over in Asia Pacific, we are very lucky. We are given this opportunity to be our own entrepreneurs, right? Now, 18 years and still going strong. We are located in all these 10 countries. And that is important. Because do you have friends in some of these countries? Yes, I have. I have friends in the Philippines. I have friends in Cambodia, of course, which is one of the big country that I have my business in Malaysia and so forth. Now, it's important when you have a business, you must know that what is the population? We are talking about 700 million population down here. Big business, right? Even if you just have 1.00 something percent of this, still big business. And many of us, the business extends far beyond these countries. I have customers all the way to as far as Peru, right? In America, in England, and so forth. I think many of us have the same experience. We do have customers all over the place, but these are the places where we can also build a franchise business model. Now, one of the myths is that I feel that many people don't understand what is network marketing. So I'm going to just provide a very simple explanation of why I find this business model very fascinating and very interesting. And it's really a business for all of us, right? Now, if you have a good solution, just like something like CELERGEN, which can help many people and, and market, and through the sharing of mouth, guess what? We will have customers. It can be friends, it can be family, it can be, just through word of mouth, it can be through social media, whatever it is, people hear of you. If they're fortunate to come across your path and you're able to share with them a solution that solves their problem, guess what? We will build our customers. Now, this is what we actually call the retail side of the business. Now, more important, you will have friends. You have friends who are looking for opportunities. And that's why I always find this business very, emotionally engaging, right? Now, I have friends who, I come across not happy with where they are right now, wanting a change. In my traditional business or corporate business that I do, it's not necessary that I'm able to offer them a job. And neither sometimes it's in my power to offer them a job, nor is the skill set ready. But with the AVITA healthcare business model, I'm able to explain the opportunity to my friend, and it gives you an opportunity to work with people that both of you may be from very, very different lines. And that's where I find so fascinating, right? Among the partners that I have will be businessmen, even housewives, even ordinary people who are just working as an admin and want to make a better life for themselves, right? The platform cuts across all spectrums, right? As long as the person is keen to learn, the person is willing to journey with us and journey on this together, I can bring them in as partners. And this is where we call the franchise part of the business. And what do I teach my franchise partners to do? Exactly the same thing as I do. All of them have their own little cluster of customers. All of them also will talk to friends who are interested in the business and explain to them what the business is all about. And in that process grows. I always share with people, I'm so amazed that I have an international business without having stepped foot into a country for 3 years. When my business first started in Cambodia, it was thanks to a friend called Jermaine who actually knows an ex-colleague called Daphne in Cambodia. And through Daphne, Daphne saw the potential in the business, started doing the business, joining us as partners, started doing the business in Cambodia and opened up Cambodia. And in fact, I'm very fortunate that some of my Cambodian partners here today. That's Dawn behind and Peach all the way from Cambodia, right? And it was 3 years later, when COVID was over, I finally had a chance to enter in Cambodia. And by then, my business in Cambodia has grown to a sizable size, quite a sizable group. And that's why the last few years I've been actively going in to support them, right? And it amazes me how, I cannot imagine a business where I can extend my way into a global network without having even stepped foot in the country. And that is the power of network marketing, right? So important is it gives you the ability to work with people that you like, people that you admire, and give them a chance to work together and learn and journey together. And that to me is the beauty of network marketing, right? And more important, we are a strong company support that takes care of all the very tedious activities like, manufacturing, stock, certification, and so forth. And all we do is really just share solutions and then work with our partners, train our partners, and build the business. And this is what I call leverage. It's only through the fact that you have different partners working with you, I'm able to multiply myself multiple times, right? What we call the power of leverage, right? It's a beautiful way to multiply time. It's a beautiful way to build multiple sources of income, right? Now, I think that one of the most key success factor here is something called our education system. Now, even for somebody who has worked in corporate for 20, 30 years, nothing prepares me for what it actually takes to be successful in network marketing. And I'm very thankful that we have a very systematic education system that enables us, to earn as we learn. Now, many a times, if you go to university, you got to finish your 4 years of education before you can even go get a job, right? To start earning your first pay. In this business, it's very interesting, right? It's literally as you learn, you can put into practice, and as you practice, you get better, and that's when you start to earn. I always say that this is really a real life MBA, okay? Much better than one of those that you're going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars, and you learn a lot of stuff from dealing with people, dealing with businesses, dealing with humans, emotions. Wow. I can't imagine it's such a satisfying journey working with my team, just seeing them grow personally and, in all aspects, right? Many of us didn't start out being traditional, many of us started as being traditional workers, and, growing into entrepreneurs is really one of the most satisfying aspects of the AVITA, right? And of course, this is our training, right? Now, in AVITA, it's very simple, right? We basically have 3 ranks. The first 3 ranks are what you call from VIP to Gold are what we call consumer ranks. Consumer ranks are not, well, just think about as a loyalty discounting, right? People who consume, stay with you long enough as they gather enough, points like a supermarket, they get better discounts, right? Now, more important is the 4 ranks that ranges from all the platinum all the way to crown. Those are what we call the business leader rank. Okay. So as a recommendation, I say if you're looking at a business and the business is, has potential for you, then look at the business startup rank of Gold Associate. And what you want to do as a first business goal is really get yourself up to become a platinum director in the shortest time possible. And I'll share with you the good reason why that is so. Now, you get started in the business. Now, a very simple thing, when you first come in, it might be part-time, it might be full-time, or it might be whatever time. I say set very simple goals for yourself. So I'll start with using the diagram to explain a very simple goal, right? Now, just target consumers. Let me start with 20 VIP consumers. Like, given long enough time as you talk to your friend, and if you share, and you make use of the events that AVITA has, building yourself up to 20 VIP consumers, okay, not a bad thing. Your consumers will actually buy something. Now, some of your consumers, guess what? After they started taking, they'll be curious and ask you and say, hey, I find the product is very good. No, can I learn how to take it cheaper? Yes, you can. You can actually teach them. So some of them will be willing to share with friends and so forth. And this is what we call a retailer mode. That build up 10 asset retailers, and each one of them, again, have their own little cluster of customers because these are the people who love to network, love to share good things about, right? And then target to look for yourself 5 good friends, 5 good people that you would love to work with as partners. Okay, that would be a good goal to set for our first year, right? And from these goal distributors, of course, each one of them, you'll be teaching them to do exactly the same thing. Each one of them will have 20 VIPs, 10 silver retailers, and of course, their own gold partners. Now, just take 1 year. If every consumer was to take nothing but just CELERGEN, and CELERGEN, the way it's built is, you basically take 1 box every month, right? Now, if each of these consumers down there, all of them were just to consume what we call a CELERGEN annual pack. A CELERGEN annual pack basically comprises of 14 boxes of CELERGEN, so roughly about 1 year of supply, right? Now, as a goal, this is how much you stand to earn when you share with your consumers. Not too bad, the $9,000 coming from the consumers. Now, from the retailers, it becomes interesting because that cluster is a bigger group, and each one of them under there, if they actually do consume that annual pack of CELERGEN, this is what you get to earn from there. And this is what you get potentially to look at from your partners. Now, this is just earning as a goal. And not too bad. Pretty decent, for pretty decent income. Now, let's look at the difference. Let's look at the difference right now if you are a platinum director. Same amount of effort, right? You still be doing the business. You just have your 20 VIP consumers. You have your own partners. You have your own retailers. But just because your rank is different, look at the differences in commission. So we always say, the first business goals, once you decided to get started in the business, get yourself up to the platinum rank as soon as possible. And yes, and we have many leaders down here who have actually led the way, showing us that yes, it can be done. Right? And that's the beauty of it. We are not asking you to work this alone. This is a team game. You know, we all work together, we all work collectively together, and that's the fun part about this business. So unlike many traditional business, you know, you face a lot of competition. Over here, we work together as a family, collectively, leverage on each other's power, and this is what our business is all about. Okay. Now, so to summarize on the longevity economy, we all know about all these trends that are rising because of the longevity economy. Now, if you have a premium anti-aging solutions, and today I'm really talking about CELERGEN, find out from your friend about the rest of the anti-aging solutions that we have, a very powerful suite of products. Marry them with an AVITA business platform. This is how, right? This is how you basically ride the longevity economy. Now, so ladies and gentlemen, ask yourself, would it be easy for you to live tomorrow as a repeat of yesterday? Or come join us, the AVITA family, right? Right on this longevity economy on the AVITA wellness platform to build a better tomorrow, okay? Not just for yourself, but for yourself and your loved ones, and also build a legacy that lasts forever, okay? Now, we will later on have a little breakout, so then you can find out more in the breakout rooms, whether in the Zoom or over here. We'll talk about this little question. Now, what's your biggest takeaway today from the thing? And of course, how can AVITA help you to build a economy, help you to build yourself up? This thing. How can AVITA help you to build a brighter tomorrow from the longevity economy? Now, I know many people always say that, wow, I'm a bit of fear, I'm not too sure how to do that, and so forth. And I'm just going to let one of my mentors share with you this mantra that I hold very dear to heart. Richard says, like, if somebody ever offers you an amazing opportunity, and you're not really sure if you can do it, say yes first, then learn how to do it later. Now, 7 years ago, when Alvin offered me this amazing opportunity, okay, I didn't know how to do it, so I know how you all feel. But what I did was I said yes, I trusted my friend, and here today, 7 years later, me and my team, we are riding on the longevity economy, and we are very happy. So a friend today who actually cares about you has actually invited you, whether to the Zoom or whether to this physical talk. Are you going to say yes to the person and ride together on this longevity economy together with him or her? Thank you.